But anyways, let's get started with a nice little prayer. Um,
Okay, let's do this.
well, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost,
Yes.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to help us reach many men, many people who are struggling in their faith, but not just in their faith, also in everything else personally, through their struggles, through their loneliness, their whatever they're going through. Help us be tools and instruments of this faith. That there is a way to you. It may not be easy, but that you are number one, and we ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
All right, so Sam, we're finally here, man. First episode, first, once before I continue, welcome to the brand new show, Pints, Pipes, and Cross Catholic Show. I am your host, Jose.
Co-host Sam.
All right. Well, in this first episode, we're gonna kind of spontaneously take off. Let me introduce myself. As some of you know, my name is
Wait,
Jose.
before I was going to say, before you introduce yourself, give a little spiel. Like, what is Pints, Pipes, and Cross? What are we going to do? What's the show about? Why did we name it that? Yeah, what's going on with that, Jose?
All right. So we have an ex-bartender here, and you have a normal Catholic guy here who loves cigars. And we're both it just so happens we're both Knights of Columbus, and that's how we met. I met him, we hit it off, and we're like, let's start this show. We couldn't come up with a name. Sam came up with this brilliant idea, this brilliant name: Pints, Pipes, and Cross. I added the Catholic show just because we're both trads. We're traditionalists. We attend the land mass. We're strong believers of this sort of liturgy, and we'll explain more as time goes on. Now, why pints? Well,
And for those of you
beer,
guys,
whiskey.
who recognize, sorry, I just wanted to say, for those of you guys that recognize the quote, "Pints, Pipe, and Cross," we wanted to dedicate this to G.K. Chesterton, prominent Catholic writer, because G.K. Chesterton, at least in my opinion, Jose's opinion too, we've talked about this, and that's why we made the dedication. G.K. Chesterton was one of the most prolific writers of the 20th century, and he had a way about professing his Catholicism that included this idea of being able to indulge in pleasures of life while glorifying God. Not overindulge. We're not hedonists, not saying that. But Pints, Pipe, and Cross, G.K. Chesterton understood that a good Catholic man could enjoy a good beer, could smoke a good pipe, and could still lay dedication to the Holy Cross and be a good, strong, practicing Catholic man when he needed to. He's also funny and humorous, and I hope that me and Jose will be good, funny, humorous hosts on this show, and that we'll be able to have these conversations and have a little jovial fun as we talk about whatever random thing comes up for each episode. But yeah, go ahead, Jose.
So we're not theologians. Let's put that out there. We're not theologians. We're not apologists. Wait, what's the right term? Apologetics.
Yeah,
Apologists.
apologist.
Apologists. Yeah. Tomato. Um, we're not experts in the topic, but we are two Catholic men who believe that in order for, do I dare say it, for the church, for society, and for anything in life, we need to go back to tradition. We truly believe that tradition can restore a lot of people's faith. But don't think it's just G.K. Chester. G.K. Chesterton. Man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like mumble jumble here.
Yeah, you're nervous.
We're gonna
It's
be
okay.
talking
Shake it
about
off.
C.S. Lewis.
It's the first episode.
Oh man, having a co-host really, it makes me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have intellectuals such as C.S. Lewis. We'll talk about him. Um, Ratzinger. We're gonna have some good talks here. Spontaneous talks, random talks, all with topics, but all with a purpose. Okay. Um, but we have this show to bring to you as a gift, right? Just two guys who really just want to talk because the world never wants to hear it. Society really doesn't want to hear it. It's funny today at mass. Uh, the priest, I forgot what priest it was, but it was during mass. In the homily, he said something that really motivated me to continue because honestly, it's not easy talking to the whole world, trying to be honest, and above all, be a Catholic in the social media world, talking about our faith. He said something.
Let
He
alone a
said
Catholic
that
man.
exactly, exactly. He said pretty much that a lot of people don't have God because, and how do you know? Because when you have God, you have joy. Even in your struggles, you have joy. But we don't see that nowadays. We see a lot of people who have quote unquote faith or that they believe in God, and especially men. Us men, we're very stubborn people. By nature, we're stubborn. I'm a stubborn guy. And so we like to believe our lies, and a lot of people believe, oh, God exists, but then the first struggle comes around and there's no joy, God doesn't exist anymore, but then they're happy and oh, God exists. And so if God truly exists in our lives, we'll be happy. There'll be joy somehow. And he gave the example of saints. All the saints that we've had throughout the history of the church, they've all had that joy in the struggle. I mean, look at Padre Pio, he struggled a lot, but still had that joy. I don't know if you want to add something to
I
that.
think. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, hopping off of everything that you said, it's also not just going to be a look at theologians. It's also not just going to be a look at writings and things like that. But we do want to take inspiration from these saints that we draw from, and that's really it. Is I'm hoping through this podcast we're able to explore our thoughts, our feelings, the things that we experience as Catholic men, and as just your kind of common everyman lay Catholics in the church, because that's what we wanted to bring to you guys from our perspective. Is that look, we're not Matt Fradd with Pints with Aquinas. We're not, XYZ big Catholic
Joe
talk show.
Rogan.
We're not catching foxes. We're not Joe Rogan in the secular side. But we're just two kind of lay Catholics who thought, hey, you know what? We want to put our voices out there. Maybe someone will find them interesting. Maybe a lot of people will find it interesting. Who knows? Who knows where this will take us? We're on episode 1. We may look back in a couple of years and see, oh, wow, that was humble beginnings. But we're just two lay Catholic guys trying to figure out how to be saints. And we have all of these examples from the church's history that we want to look to as well. And hopefully we can shed some light on our experiences and how we view those saints. And maybe it'll give you guys a lens to look through as well. Maybe you don't know some of the saints. Maybe you guys want to hear just other people's experience, other guys' experience. We don't know. That's that's what we're putting out there, and we want to see what happens. And so yeah, I'm hoping a lot of fruitful conversations come of this. I'm hoping that we'll be able to just turn this into something regular that we can talk about and get our feelings out, and get our thoughts and words and become saints, because that's ultimately the goal. We want to become saints, and we want to bring you guys along with us. So I think on that note, Jose, let's hear. Okay, tell us about you. Who is Jose Aguilar? Like, where did you come from? How did you grow up? Did you grow up Catholic? Yeah, let's hear just a brief life story. You don't have to tell us every little detail, but what made you the man you are today, and
It's
what
gonna
made
be
you have
the
this
size
strong
of a
Catholic
Bible.
foundation? Oh, let's go. Let's hear it.
All right, let's see where to start. First of all, I was born in Mexico. I was born in a city called Aguascalientes. My parents brought me when I was 1. grew up a Catholic, just like everybody else, a normal Catholic. Go to church Sundays. My parents would just go Sundays. I would go with them. And then, but we lived in California originally, and so we moved to California from Mexico. I was one, and then maybe about 4 years later, my sister's born. From there, we moved to Dallas, Texas, and so I consider Dallas my home 100%. I've always been a diehard Dallas Cowboys, in case y'all were wondering, a diehard Cowboy fan. So we
It's
may
like
lose some subscribers
80% of
here,
all
but hey, it's
Mexicans, right?
okay. Yeah, it's either Cowboys or Raiders.
Yeah, seriously.
So from there, my parents, they joined a group in the Catholic Church, a Novus Ordo, pretty much group. I'm not going to name the group because I don't want, there to be some controversy of me attacking them or whatnot. But they joined this group, and so I kind of, you can say, I grew up in the church, at a very early age, at about 6, and once again, Novus Ordo, I grew up just, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I know that many men don't like talking about it, but I'm a very open person. I would like men to kind of take us as an example. I'm going to get a little personal because I feel that's a good way to evangelize. Um, when we lived in California, I was sexually abused, which shook my faith. It shook it. It shook it so much that growing up, although my parents were in the Catholic Church, um, I struggled. I struggled very much. How, of course, like a typical teenager, I had my struggles. Of course, being sexually abused at the age of 3, you kind of grow with your sexuality very distorted. You don't find a normality behind it, and so of course my sexuality began to bother me growing up. Especially in my teenage years. So from there, uh, I ended up going to the seminary at the age of 19. Was studying to be a priest, and God had His own way. He somehow, you know, sent me back to Dallas. I was studying in New Jersey. Sent me back to Dallas
Really
after
quick
four
before you
years of study.
continue, yeah, Jose, before you continue, can you expand on like what led you to seminary and all that? So, because that's kind of a jump, right? Like you're struggling with you're struggling with this horrible experience, as a kid, and that's with you in your life. But what really led you to seminary? How did that
True, true.
affect your decision to go to seminary?
So,
You stayed in the faith, but yeah, what's all that?
so throughout my rebellious years, I've had many thoughts, suicide, leaving the church, not believing in God, kind of having my atheist moments. Um,
Mhm.
until it's funny, what made me truly realize that I needed to change was the fact that during a retreat in one of these church retreats that the group does, I had a seizure. Uh, partying all weekend with the other rebellious kids. I had a seizure, and that was kind of like the eye opener. Um, and so through that eye opener, I began to notice that my friends were my friends. That people that said they cared about me never cared about me, and so I was left alone. And that's where God kind of came to me and made me feel that He truly existed, that He is. But it was in my struggle that I felt that. And I would get into a little theological stuff, but I'm not going to do that just because I want to be short. But I had this moment where I knew He was calling me to do something. What was it? I didn't know, right? So at that time, I thought it was a calling to the seminary, and so I left to the seminary. Um, Once again, it wasn't that I chose New Jersey. You kind of get lauded at random. Uh, from Italy, you go to Italy and you meet the rest of these people that are going to seminaries, and we all get lauded. So I got lauded to New Jersey. Others got sent to Vienna. Others got sent to Sao Paulo, Brazil. It's quite the experience. So pretty much that gesture, that what I did was giving my all to God, because I had a certainty that He existed, and I wanted to be happy because I wasn't. The answer to my life was always trying to figure out how to stop my sexuality from stopping from making me happy. I had I had built a wall with my sexuality, and so I couldn't get past that wall. And I was at that point where I just couldn't I couldn't see clearly. And so I went to the seminary at the age of 19 after I had this whole uh, experience. Went to the seminary for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years. I think it was four. Anyways, came back. I love Jersey, by the way. It's not as stinky as people think. I love it. And no, I'm not a
The
Giants fan.
armpits of America, as some people say.
I've heard Houston is that, but I have a debate for that too. Um, so went to seminary. Once again, Novus Ordo. At this point, I came. This is where things really begin to change because I came across the Latin Mass without knowing it. To me, I heard Latin Mass that we were the Latin Mass Church, but for some reason I thought it didn't exist. I thought it was just done. That was something old people did back in the day, and then Second Vatican Council came, and this is what we're doing now. So, but that's where my interest first kicked in, right? Why was it so different? All these questions. Anyways, I don't want to get into that just yet. Um, Went to this Novus Ordo seminary, left with the blessing of the rector and everybody else. Came back and kind of messed up at first. My belief, since I never truly had a suffering besides the sexual abuse growing up, I never really had an encounter again, a deep, deep, deep encounter of suffering, 100%. So then I started, I had a girlfriend, started sinning so much with her. And of course, I'm a talking code, right? I think everybody understands what I mean by sin. um, Started doing things with her for about a year and a half to 2 years, and was enlightened to kind of let her go, and shortly after met my wife and fell in love with her automatically. First love at first sight. And yeah, as Catholics, we don't really truly believe that 100%, but that's what happened with me. Saw her and I knew automatically in my heart that she was the one. And that's a different story for another day. And So I continued, going to Novus Order, but I began to feel empty, extremely empty, because yeah, I was going, but something was missing. It I felt as if it was incomplete. I'm not sure if I make sense. It felt yeah, everything is there, but something was missing of it. And next thing you know, here comes this one article about young people from CNA, actually, the Catholic news agency, speaking about young people attending the Latin Mass more than anything else. And so that really triggered me even more to look into it. I started doing my research, all while being in this group, right? Then my research, started researching, and I started discovering a lot of beautiful things. Mind you, I was doing my research not because I wanted to attend at all. My plan was never to become a traditionalist. My plan was never to leave the Novus Ordo or to leave the group I was in. It was all just for research. That's all it was. Well, my research kept on going. I started discovering beautiful things, beautiful things. And one day, believe it or not, Shia LaBeouf was interviewed by Bishop Barron, and he said something that resonated with me because that's how I felt. And he said the following, and I quote: he said, Bishop Barron asked him, why the Latin Mass? Why did he like it so much, and he said the following: I felt what I feel in the land mass is I don't feel like, no, how do you say it? In the land mass, I don't feel like someone is trying to sell me something. It was an authentic thing that he felt. And that's what I felt. I would go to normal mass, and I felt like they were really trying to convince me of something, trying to sell me something, and that's what I felt. So at this point, I was in Houston, still living, and then I moved to Dallas for work, and I attended my first land mass. Once again, mind you, it was just for research. It wasn't it wasn't for me to like attend 100%. I went to land mass, and I was going through some deep troubles economically with my family, to the point of suicide again. I had thought about suicide more heavily this time because the devil does attack. The devil does exist, and he knows where to get you. Um, and so my life is at the brink of being done. Um, so I attend my first land mass. It was a low mass, and I was hooked. I went once, started going again and again. At first, it was just research, and then little by little, I began to discover something beautiful. And just continue. I mean, up until now, I just see something more beautiful than anything ever before. Um, I just continued going, and ever since then, I just decided to leave the group. Of course, it was tough because when you leave a group that you grew up in and your brothers, your siblings were born into, it's very difficult to really leave. You risk a lot. But at this point, it's not so much about the people, it's so much about my faith, and about my family and the happiness and having God 100%. So so yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I do have more, but I think as the show goes on, a little bit more of me will start coming out and being expressed.
Yeah, no,
So yeah,
that was I feel
let's
like a
hear
great
you, man. I
overview.
mean, you're from El Paso. That's more scary.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, maybe to some, maybe to some. So I don't think that I have a story that's quite as exciting as yours, but I think I do still have a story to tell. So right, born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Um, uh, Lovely city. It's an awesome place to grow up. It's for several years, and I don't know if this is still the case. Was considered the safest city in America. Part of
Oh,
that is due to the military base, right? El Paso's
that's a
built
lie.
off of Fort Bliss. Um, Statistically, I don't know. Crime was down. I actually don't know how you rate that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the stat that it held on to. A lot of people think that it's scary and it's dangerous because Juarez was the most dangerous city in the world, right across the border. But no, El Paso, yeah, safest city in America for however many years. Anyway, born and raised there, grew up there. Born to two Catholic parents, and what I found in our Catholic community was a kind of I don't want to say Catholic indifferentism per se, but it was a lot of community members that were born into the Catholic faith but were never really instructed what that meant. It was more like they were born Catholic because their parents were Catholic and they went to church because their parents went to church. But at some point, that just became a habit and it didn't become a conviction. And I think that that was true of probably 80 to 90% of many of the churchgoers that I encountered. Right? And it certainly was true of me. Right? I can say that from my early upbringings, I went to church because my parents went to church because my grandmother went to church, and at some point, I just kind of stopped going to church. there was a period where I was what we colloquially call Creaster Catholics. I would go to mass every Christmas and every Easter, and that was it. Besides that, we slept in on Sundays. We didn't really make much of it. It was just, another day of the week. And so this is kind of the basis I had throughout my childhood and, up to the cusp of my adulthood right at 18. And now, keep in mind, the juxtapose right there is that I went to Catholic school for my entire upbringing through secondary school. So, from pre-K all the way through high school graduation, I was at a Catholic school. And my Catholic schools were okay. They were better than any public school education would have ever given me. But I don't think it was enough in light of the indifferentism that most of the congregations of the churches that they attended had, right? They did not, I think, instill heavy enough. And maybe this isn't their fault. In fact, I would dare to say that it really isn't their fault, because it's also the students' parents, right? The kids that surrounded me, for the most part, many of them stopped practicing their faith. I don't know. I don't know. It's not to say that there are none, but I don't know of any of my classmates from any of those Catholic schools that are still practicing their faith to this day, right? And yeah, I don't think that it was necessarily the school's fault. I don't even know if the school contributed to them, because what ultimately leads to that, what ultimately leads to people falling away from their faith, is a home life where they don't go out of their way to instill those values. A home life where they're not taking their kids to mass and they're not instructing them, because a Catholic school can only do so much. If you're living at home, like, it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter what the school's going to teach you. It's not going to matter to you. And so, right, I don't mean that to bash Catholic schools, who are doing their best and trying their best. Sure, just like any other school, just like any other institution, there are some that don't do as good as they should. But yeah, that can be said of any institution. As Catholic schools, we hold them to a higher standard, of course. But I'm rambling here. All I mean to say is, despite my Catholic school upbringing, I still had a very shaky foundation in my faith. It was, again, just one of those things that was part of my upbringing, and that I had because it was a cultural thing, because my parents went, because my grandparents went. And so here I go to college, and I end up getting accepted eventually to Baylor University, the largest Baptist university in the world, right? It's often called the Vatican of Baptists, by some people at least. And this posed a kind of challenge for me, but a very funny challenge, because I was going to this Baptist school, and I always considered myself a Catholic, even if I wasn't practicing, even if I wasn't going to mass. It was still something that I was brought up with enough, and that I went to Catholic school enough that I'm like, yeah, I'm a Catholic. And so, I guess I gotta really start taking my faith seriously. But this is kind of cool, because these are my honest to God thoughts, by the way. Like, my honest to God thoughts going into Baylor University as a Creaster Catholic was, oh man, this is crazy. I went to Catholic school for like 14 years. I'm going to be the renowned expert on Catholicism to all these Baptists. Like, all of my classmates, they're going to look to me as the Catholic expert, and they're going to ask me for all of their questions about the faith. This is going to be
And then you were
crazy.
like, fell.
And and it was awful. Cue the memes. I'm sure, Jose, you've seen the memes, right? The I went to Catholic school memes. Those irritate me precisely because I was one of those. Someone comes up to you and they say they think they know Catholicism better than you because they went to Catholic school for 14 years, and turns out they don't know jack. I was one of those. And again, um, it was very, very apparent when I got to the Catholic Student Center, and I met one of my very, very good friends. He's still a dear, dear friend of mine. And he met me, asked me who my confirmation saint was, started greeting me by that confirmation saint's name, and then started asking me questions on these church fathers that like, have I read these church fathers? Oh, have you like, what's my opinion on this, that, or the other writing of like Saint Augustine, whom, by the way, I hadn't ever read before. And he was running laps around me as far as like Catholic knowledge. And here's the kicker: this guy had not been Catholic for more than 8 months. He had just gotten confirmed that past Easter, and so he's a Catholic convert. And so here's this guy, like, this was a world shattering moment for me in my faith. Here is this guy who has been Catholic for less than 8 months, who is running circles around me in like faith-based knowledge that I feel like I should know. If I'm here espousing myself to be Catholic, if I went to Catholic school for 14 years, quote unquote, like, and I thought that I was this big shot, knowledgeable guy on Catholicism, and this guy, like, yeah, this kid over here who's been Catholic for what, 8 months, like, could school me on any sort of knowledge. I really have to get my act together. I really have to figure this stuff out. And so that was really the spark that, I'll say, lit the fire that told me, hey, you're not taking this as seriously as you should. You don't even know half the things that you need to know. And so you really got to get with the program. Yeah, mister, I went to Catholic school for 14 years. That means that you got that many years of ground to make up for, and you better start doing it now. And so from then on, this led me into a deep dive into the faith throughout college, and I wanted to learn so much more, and I became so involved in the student center, and I barked at the chance to get any sort of Catholic knowledge that I could, and to understand more and more about my faith, because I realized how little I did know. Now, here's the cool thing, though. Here's the cool thing about what came of that is, yeah, I say that Catholic schools, like, they may not have trained me as much as I wish they had, but they didn't do nothing. Of course not. What I found was there were, as I learned more and more about the Catholic faith, as I read Lives of the Saints, as I read Augustine's Confessions, as I read the Summa, every little bit of what I read had like a nugget of memory just deep seated in my brain, so that I would read something and later on and be like, oh, yeah, that's this thing. I remember that because, we had a class on that back when I was in high school, back when I was in grade school. And I find that although I didn't have perfect knowledge, and although I wasn't a practicing Catholic coming out of high school, I definitely had a foundation that set me up to know more and learn better than I think many other people, could have learned given the situation. And so that was a really encouraging thing about taking my faith seriously. So another thing that happened, and just to touch on, the trad side of life, is I was introduced to the Latin Mass there. And what is kind of curious about my experience with the Latin Mass versus, say, yours, is that I will say that my experience with the Latin Mass started first as an intellectual thing. And not to say that you went on record saying how much you studied it, right? But what I'm saying is I didn't have that initial like feeling of movement when I first went to Latin Mass. It was more of a, oh, hey, look, this is so cool. Oh, because like this is how they do things, and there's like all these reasons on why they do this, that, and the other thing. And oh, this isn't in like our Mass, and oh, it comes from this, and it comes from this tradition, and it comes from that tradition. So at first, it wasn't a movement of the heart. It was a movement of the intellect. It was, oh, that's so cool because this is founded in this historical tradition that I'm now just rediscovering. And that's how I marry those two. Is at the time I was learning more and more about my own faith and learning more and more about the history of my faith. And so, during college, I would say I was definitely in intellect mode. I was learning about all these things. So when I encountered the Latin Mass, which they just so happened to have in town at the time, and when I encountered that for the first time, it was, wow, this thing is really cool. I love the history of it, and I kind of want to keep going. And so, I kept going and I kept going. And the neat thing for me is it turned from, in a very, dare I say, Dominican way, it turned from a movement of the intellect into a movement of the heart. And so I slowly began to be transformed by the Latin Mass. And as I would go to high masses and as I would, hear the polyphony or the chant or, whatever it was that they were singing at the time, just this beauty encapsulated the liturgy that I think really, really sprung me forward even more than had I just continued going to Nova Sordo. And not to bash Nova Sordo or anything like that at all. It's just that, my soul was fed way more. And again, that fire that was sparked by my good friend that led me to want to rediscover my faith more was essentially the Latin Mass took a big bottle of lighter fluid and sprayed it all over that fire and just made it skyrocket even further.
And just for the record, we're FSSP. We're not promoting anything else. We're 100% in communion with Rome. We're not breaking away. We're not in schism. We're none of that. We're in communion with Rome.
Yeah, we're not the Nova Sordo bad trads. We're just the happy trads. Though we like our Latin Mass trads.
And leave us alone.
No. But anyway, the Latin Mass holds that kind of beauty, right? And so it really sparked that desire to dive even deeper in my faith. So I've rambled on a bit here. I was in college and I wanted to delve deeper into my faith, and I did. I guess in college, just kind of for context of, who I am, how I think, and all that, I studied physics, so I was always very scientifically minded. And physics is a very difficult degree, and because of the rediscovery of faith and because of a whole mess of other things that were going on in my life in college, in part the struggles of trying to take my faith seriously after years of not taking it seriously. In other part, I guess more typical things that college kids go through. Oh, am I smart enough to be doing this? Am I smart enough to get the degree? Like am I where I'm supposed to be? And then I guess more Catholic things. Oh, am I discerning a religious life to the priesthood? Should I actually enter seminary after college? What's what is my ultimate vocation there? Anyway, all of these things, all of these struggles, had some like really rocky up and downs for me in college, and I ended up taking a couple of extra years, so I didn't graduate in your typical 4 years. But in the interim, to speak to your initial words of introduction about me, I took up bartending. When I was in college, funny story about that too, if I might digress a little more. Growing up, I always hated beer. I hated beer. I did not like beer at all. I despised beer, and that was precisely because the beer that I had always tried was the beer that, like uncles and dads and all of them would, bring you over and they'd be, come here, mijito, come on, come here, try this. And they'd give you a sip of their beer, and it was Bud Light, it was Coors Light, it was Miller Light, your American light lagers that just taste like trash. And so I had it in my head that is what all beer was, and that is what all beer tasted like. And so
Coors Light's not that bad.
Coors Light's not that bad, but it's still an American light beer, and it's not that good.
Look at that right there, Coors Banquet. Don't trash on my Coors.
Hey, that's not Coors Light. That's Coors. That's a Yellow Belly. Okay, so there's a little more flavor there. So I'll give it a pass. Too. Well, anyway, your bad taste in beer aside, what I discovered in
Oh, I
what
challenge
I
you to a duel
discovered in
now.
college. Hey, again, bartender, you see all these liquors up here? Let's go. Come on. But what I discovered in college was beer doesn't have to taste bad. And how I discovered that was another good friend of mine who was really into making his own beer. And he showed me through his own brews that, oh no, beer can actually taste good. You just have to make it yourself. And that was my first introduction into the world of craft beer. It was, oh, make beer at home and put all the stuff that you want in it to make it taste good. And it was very soon after that that I discovered, oh, this whole world of craft breweries also exists, right? There are breweries here and there and everywhere that are making the best beers in the world and the weirdest and wildest beers that you can imagine. You know, in my time since I had been turned on to the light of beer. I've enjoyed pickle beers. I've enjoyed ice cream beers. I've enjoyed milkshake beers, if you can believe that's a thing. I've there's one notable brewery that is now defunct. I'm so sad about this. The Collective Brewing Project. They created a ramen noodle beer.
Oh
Like
that's
this
gross.
thing tasted that's weird, but hear me out. It tasted like ramen, but in the best way possible. So their spices were lemongrass and ginger. So it had like a lemongrass ginger taste, and their shtick. The cool thing was they used ramen noodles as like the base that they fermented the beer with, right? So instead of wheat or other grains that you normally use to make beer, they used ramen noodles. Um, anyway, yeah,
Not
all
convinced.
types of beer under the suns I've tried. They're crazy, they're wild, but they taste delicious. And
Side note.
that led me into a love of alcohol. Go ahead.
So in El Paso, if you're in El Paso and you're a El Pasoan, whatever you call yourselves, um, my friend, and it's not sponsored. It's just shout out to him and for y'all to go visit. If you're in El Paso, the Three Missions Brewery. He just started his brewery a couple years ago, and it's blowing up. He has craft beer. It's pretty good. I'm pretty sure. I really want to go visit. It's in the town starts with an S.
Uh,
Sacramento, no.
um, no. Socorro.
Yeah, Socorro. That's where it's at.
Mhm.
So if you're in El Paso, just a little side note, pass by the Three Missions Brewery.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. When I was growing up in El Paso, zero craft breweries. When I went back as an adult, three craft breweries. Now, one of those craft breweries has actually gone defunct, but they have, I think, seven craft breweries. So craft
Mm.
beer has really exploded in El Paso, which is awesome. But actually, it's not awesome because I don't live there and I haven't been able to try them all. But it's awesome for people who are still in El Paso, and whenever I visit, I'll have to stop by. Um, anyway, um, yeah, craft beer led me into a love of alcohol, and so I knew in college that I really wanted to get into bartending because that experience of trying beer crafted by my friend that was actually delicious led me to believe, and this turned out to be 100% true, that any form of alcohol that you drink can be delicious if you know what you're doing and if you know how to make it right. And so it started with a love of craft beer. And that love of craft beer slowly grew, and I started making beer myself, and I started helping my friend make beer, and I still help him make beer sometimes. And we make some pretty good beer. But on top of that, I also wanted to learn more about wine. I also wanted to learn more about whiskey. I also wanted to learn more about vodka. What were these heavier spirits that people make cocktails with? How do you make a cocktail? What goes into that? And so, again, alluding to Chesterton, this love of the things that you can take pleasure in this life, I wanted to learn how to craft those things just beautifully and masterfully and make something delicious. And so I started bartending in college in my intern period before I was graduating, but while I was like taking a semester off or during the summers or whatever. And I started learning a lot about alcohol, and it was awesome. And I learned so much, being on the ground, learning how to mix things, and just learning more and more about alcohol, what it does, its history, and all of that. So, long story short, by the time I got out of college, I had a love of alcohol. I was a professional bartender. I did that for a year or so afterwards, and I really got into it, and I really learned to appreciate all sorts of alcohol, spirits, wine, and beer. Um, and so that's been very integral into my adulthood, right? Is um, having that as part of my social circle, having that as part of, dare I say, my identity, is loving the craft that goes into that, and especially loving the people that surround you and the people and friendships that you can make because of it. Again, we're diverging here a little bit. Um, Finishing up a story about my life. Met my wife in college. She was the little sister of one of my good friends, and we hit it off really well. We became friends, but those kind of distant friends. We'd see each other, we'd say hi. But it wasn't until late in college that we actually started becoming really, really close friends. She was dating someone at the time. Again, story for a different day. Eventually, they broke up. We started dating, and we kept dating. And I decided, hey, this is the woman I really want to marry. And so I did. And we got married. It was a beautiful COVID wedding. None of our family were, not none of our family, but like hardly any of our family was able to attend because, COVID went crazy and the earth died and everyone blew up and everyone was scared out of their minds to do this, that, or the other thing. And so we had a wedding with many of our friends, with some of our family, and it was one of the best days of our lives because we finally sealed the deal and got to marry each other and marry each of our best friends, her to me and me to her, and we started living our life together, and it was awesome. We have 2 kids now, and we're here in Dallas, um, trying to get by every day. Um, living life as best that we can. Um, Again, just by nature of being humans, every day is an up and down struggle with this, that, or the other thing. But as we're all called to as Catholic people, we're just trying to be saints and live life and, get through this earthly pilgrimage that God has given to us. So that's me.
Hey, well, this is us. Um, by the way, I'm married, have 2 kids as well. We both actually just had babies just recently. Mine just
No,
turned
actually,
two
yeah,
months.
this is crazy. We found out that we had the exact same age children too. So,
Oh yeah,
we were very curiously right on each other's timelines because your first baby was born in 2021 in like September or something, right?
no, January.
January 2021. Okay. Ours was just a little under a year later, so in November. So they're approximately the same age. And then our second babies, I think, are only a month apart because mine was just this past
Yeah,
October. Yours is what, August,
September.
September? Yeah. So not even a month.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. There's a balance. We're gonna be talking about, sure, the beer, the alcoholic beverages, that
Mhm.
everyone's so afraid, or that a lot of people really. You'll be impressed with how many people I hear, um, pretty much say that Catholics don't drink alcohol, that they don't do this, they don't do that. It's all a lie,
What
and we're
rock have they
going to
been living
debunk
under?
that. That's what I've been
I said,
asking,
what
and we're
rock
going
have
to
they been
debunk
living
that.
under, dude? Come on. Yeah.
It's we're not in the 1800s here. Um,
I mean, but we're also Catholic, and no Catholic has ever not like, yeah, Catholicism has
monks
never not been alcohol friendly, dude. Jesus
monks
himself drank
created beer.
wine. Jesus turned water into wine. So, what's that? Yeah.
And he was
Nonsense.
partying it up.
I mean, again, yeah.
So yeah,
See,
so I mean,
turning water into wine.
oh yeah, he needs to do that to whiskey. It'll be the
That would be
Jesus
one
bourbon.
heck of a party. The Jesus bourbon.
No, but we're gonna be talking about most of this stuff. It's an intro to both of us to the show, but there is one topic that we really would like to talk about, and that's if you haven't heard, how can I put this? Bishop Strickland, the Bishop of Tyler, has been removed from his seat of Tyler. For us that attend the land mass, it's a big blow, because he was one of the biggest advocates for the land mass. And just to debunk some things I've heard, he was not a traditionalist. He was just a bishop. Nothing to do with the land mass per se. He's just a diocesan priest who just became a bishop of Tyler. But he was a strong conservative bishop who supported the land mass and the FSSP, who he has in that diocese. It's quite a blow because we have these bishops who support the TLM, and being shut down little by little. I'm not going to start naming people or naming things or blaming people, because at the end of the day, we are Catholics, and we the Pope is the Pope, and our duty is to pray for him. Something, believe it or not, what mass did you go to? By the way, we go to the same parish.
So yeah, and actually, correction. I don't really go to. I don't go to Mater Dei very frequently. It's a once in a while now, and that's only because of my job. Because as Jose alluded to earlier, I'm a Knight of Columbus, and I'm a field agent, and what that means is I'm assigned like 4 or 5 different parishes, and so almost every Sunday I hop back and forth between every single one of them. So I'm going to Mater Dei maybe like once a month, or like something they're in. So what mass did I go to? I went to 9 a.m. at a small little parish up in Richardson, Texas. Yeah, this job has me hiking all over the place.
Well, in that case, today the priest says something else in the homily, which was pretty interesting. He says, God allows the cockle to grow with the wheat. Um, so he does with the church. He allows the good and the bad to grow together within. Um, and it's our duty to kind of be patient for that cockle to kind of grow out. He wasn't talking about anything specific within the church. He was talking about us. But I can kind of use that, and I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for it. And if I do, oh well. Um, Not everything is going to go our way ever. We're here. It's a pilgrimage that we're on in this life, and what's going on to Bishop Strickland. Well, it's sad. Um, what were the intentions? It's not clear. Excuse me. Supposedly, it has to do with the for him not following the what's it called, the TC.
Traditionis Custodes.
There you go. That he wasn't following it to the T, because he knew the danger that was going to have, or yeah, the danger that was going to cause his diocese. He was going to lose more than half of his people, pretty much. Leave these people just there dry, and so that's the rumor that's going around right now. Another thing, I'm not sure if you've heard this, the catechism, that he was promoting it. Which again, I saw the video. I don't think he was promoting it whatsoever. But that's just my opinion. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. From what I heard, sure, he was reading a letter, but I don't think it was that he was promoting it. Uh, And third, I just don't see why he was forced to vacate. And it wasn't he was oh you had to vacate now. No, like it was vacate in a week. No, it was vacate now immediately. And so that causes some trouble within the church because believe it or not, my dears, it's becoming a modernist church. But the church is a church. Whatever the Pope says, I will obey. Um, but it's tough. I mean, I I would like to expand on it, but I will not expand on it today just because the episode will be too long. I have my own opinions, and I'm pretty sure Sam does too. Uh, but but yeah, I believe it was unfair. I do. There's a hashtag I stand with Strickland. Um, that'll be me. I stand with him. I believe his values and his beliefs are strong and conservative, which is something that us Catholics need. Excuse me. I feel that
Drink some water.
Catholics
Drink that
nowadays
whiskey
are
behind you. It'll help clear the throat better.
don't tempt me. Uh I just feel that Catholics nowadays need someone like him, and also like Bishop Snyder. I'm gonna throw his name out there. We need discipline. Us Catholics are becoming too lukewarm. We're becoming too free, too liberal. Just to put it this way, I know so many Catholics who, and again, we might get in trouble, and we might actually get shut down immediately with the first episode. But a lot of Catholics are pro-abortion, and that has to stop. How? I believe by going back to tradition and having these bishops having our back, and defending us.
I'm going to say something that I think might be a little more controversial than what you said. I think that there are 0 Catholics that are pro-abortion. Because if you're pro-abortion, you're not Catholic.
True, but they all carry the name of Catholics, and it's ridiculous to me. This is something this is something that I was talking to my wife about the other day, and it really makes me mad because as a person who's trying to live his faith as good as possible, and hearing other Catholics, be pro-abortion, that's not right.
Right, and I'll hop into and I'll mention because I feel the exact same way. First of all, let's do the disclaimers. Let's try not to get us shut down too. No, we're not saying that if you're pro-abortion, you are automatically, like unbaptized or anything like that. But in considering how serious abortion is, always keep in mind there is a paragraph, in the Catechism of the Catholic Church that says that if you procure an abortion or if you assist in someone procuring an abortion, you are dang it, I can't pronounce Latin right. Late sensientiae, I think that's how you pronounce it. Excommunicated, which means that you are automatically excommunicated by the fact that you sought this out. So it is serious, and if you have procured it, then you have been removed from the church. That doesn't mean that you're unbaptized. I know that's a big issue too with people's hurt feelings. They're saying, "Oh, how can you say whether or not they're Catholic or not?" I'm not saying it. The catechism literally has a line that says they're separated from the church, i.e., they're not really Catholic anymore. At least they're not within the fold of the church. Okay, there's the disclaimer. Just saying that right now because it's not us saying it, it's the church saying it, and we're not passing judgment on anyone. We're letting the church documents speak for themselves. But that being said, absolutely, one of the things that I do want to express with this podcast as well, and yeah, Jose, you were getting to this, is it's frustrating as people that are practicing Catholic or that are trying to be as practicing Catholic as we are. And don't get me wrong, as most anyone who is practicing will tell you, who is honestly practicing will tell you, we accuse ourselves first. Mea culpa first, right? Look at look at the log in your own eye before you point out the splinter in another's. I'm not the best practicing Catholic, nowhere near, but I'm trying my best every day. I can honestly say that, and I can honestly say that I'm trying to get better and better each day. And even when I do fall, and even when I do make mistakes, and even when I do have to go to confession, I pick myself up and I try to do better to not do that again. But just to speak about, I guess, the topic on Bishop Strickland, because this happened yesterday, Saturday, and I've been kind of just watching as I'm sure many trads have. I've been watching a lot of news about it, and I've been trying to keep up with other podcasts talking about it. And I was watching one that summarized it very well, and this is what I'll say about it, just in brief. It shouldn't matter what other commenters say. It shouldn't matter what we say about the situation. If it doesn't affect your personal holiness, don't worry about it and move forward. However, that being said, we do have opinions about it because it does, in a sense, rile up that righteous anger in us that can affect our holiness. And that is, these questions like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? And especially, again, us as trads, us as people that think more traditional minded and that have such an appreciation for the Latin Mass, with things like Traditionis Custodes being promulgated, with things like Bishop Strickland being removed, is a kind of sense of, what did I do? What did we do? What did we as a community do to, to have this happen to us? A very popular podcaster, very popular, according to our standards, that I listened to, had a comment about Traditionis Custodes that went something like this: is, his the Latin Mass parish that he attended was dismantled by that, motu proprio. And this was a community that was not sedevacantist. This is a community that pledged all fealty to the Pope. This is a community that just liked the Latin Mass, right? They just enjoyed the traditional liturgy and enjoyed going to it. And with one swoop of the pen, as it were, they could no longer practice the Latin Mass because they weren't FSSP. They were just a diocesan Latin Mass. And so their community was disbanded. The liturgy that they loved and, held dear to was completely disbanded. All these just run-of-the-mill practicing Catholics who have absolutely no issues with the Pope, through that time. And it really begs the question to us, like, what did we do? Like, why is this happening? Why would, if I can make it personal, why would Pope Francis do this to us? Right? Like did we wrong him in some way? Did we personally attack him? And again, more disclaimers. I'm not the Pope. I'm not saying that. I don't know what he's thinking, and I'm not the vicar of Christ. I don't know what's best for the church, and I don't claim to. But what I am saying is that us men, us families, us lay people who are trying to do the best that we can, that just so happen to also appreciate traditional liturgies and traditional bishops, or as you said, he was Bishop Strickland isn't strictly speaking a trad, but he supported the traditionalist movement. Like, why are we being bullied? What did I personally do to offend Pope Francis? Is
And it's funny.
the way I practice Catholicism so wrong that he has to go after the bishop that I admire and the Mass that I love? Go ahead.
It's funny because, like, I haven't heard a trad protest. I haven't heard any traditionalist or anyone who attends Land Mass defend themselves or defend this cause. We're speaking out in a rare, how can I put it? We take the persecution, let's put it that way. We're taking it in because at the end of the day, it is persecution. Because I honestly don't know any, unless you do, any traditionalist who really is out there forcing people to go to the land mass or telling people, hey, uh, your mass is wrong, or hey, this, or anything negative about anything else. I don't know anyone who's done anything like that. For us to truly be persecuted in that way, um, because you know what, um, I just let's put it this way. I saw this one mass, and that's where I was like, I'm done with the Novus Ordo. Not, once again, disclaimer: I'm not saying Novus Ordo is invalid. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I just don't like the way certain priests take advantage of it, because there's this leeway uh, that they have to do certain things. The priest walked in barefoot, and I was like, wait, uh, why are you barefoot? You need some
I
shoes.
don't
And
think that's necessarily wrong, but that's at least very weird.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is that, like, he, something would, if he would have justified it, or, hey, I'm barefoot in honor of so and so, or I'm something, right? He just walked in and, did the normal thing. And I was just like, wait, that's not right. I honestly don't think that's right. Like, I'm more distracted by your toes than I am paying attention. Um, like, I I don't understand. But anyways, but what I'm trying to say is, we don't we don't really, we're not attacking anyone. We're not saying anything. So why are we being picked on? We're getting picked on by the majority, and is it fair? Well, there's no such thing as being fair, right? Um, but it's still sad. Let's put it that way, because I've heard of, and these articles on my research that I previously was talking about. Uh, Two parishes from Pennsylvania were shut down. The bishop, after tried traditionis, what's it called again?
Traditionis Custodes.
It's so hard to pronounce. Anyways, um, once that came out, that motu proprio came out, a bishop automatically closed down two parishes, and those people had to leave because their church was a TLM church, and it got shut down, and they had to leave. And that, to me, saddens. It saddens me, and it's a sincere sadness, because if we're called to bring people into the church, why are we sending them away? Um, that's my point. My point of view. Why are we shutting these things down that work for people? For example, the group I was in, it wasn't working for me. But I'm not going to tell people not to go there. I'm not going to tell people, oh, it needs to be shut down. No, just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it's not going to work for anyone, right? But at the same time,
I think Pope Benedict put it best when he allowed Latin masses to happen back in 2007 with his motu proprio. I think the exact wording was, "Let that which previous generations considered holy." I think it's let that still be considered holy, or let that not be considered unholy, or something like that. But basically he's saying, hey, look, this traditional liturgy that generations before today have enjoyed, that's no longer not holy. Have that too. And that's why Pope Benedict allowed us to say the Latin Mass and experience the Latin Mass as people who were at that point 40 years removed from having ever seen a live Latin Mass. And so yeah, I would just echo that sentiment. Is almost every trad that I've ever met, almost every Latin Mass goer that I have ever met, is not trying to shut down, like Novus Ordo parishes, is not trying to shut down Novus Ordo, but they have this love and appreciation for the Latin Mass, and it's bringing them closer to Christ, and it's bringing them closer to holiness, and yet they feel like they're being attacked for no reason. They're just going to Latin Mass, and that's I want to say, and this is anecdotal because, again, I don't know every Latin Mass parish that exists. I don't know, the heart of every person that goes to every Latin Mass that exists. But I would like to be hopeful and say like 90% of everyone that goes to a Latin Mass parish is just going to a Latin Mass parish because they love Latin Mass, not because they're trying to dismantle Novus Ordo and they think that the Pope is fake and not the real Pope, and they're trying to establish a new Catholicism. And so, what does that say about like our leadership's priorities? Are they misinformed, like, or are they seeing something that we're not? It's possible. In fact, maybe that's likely. They are seeing something that we're not. But why do you have to bring the hammer down on even those faithful practitioners? Why not seek out and root out those people that are a problem? That doesn't make sense to me. But again,
I
not
think
the Pope. Don't know his mind.
I think we
Not
should
the clergy.
I think we
Go ahead.
should kind of explain everything after Second Vatican Council in a different episode, where we can, because it's a touchy subject. If you read, I think it's Summorum Pontificum.
Mhm.
If you read it and you go to the ordinariate's the most, if not the style that
I,
document specifically says.
I would argue that the Anglican Ordinariate is the fulfillment of what Summorum Pontificum tried to establish as the Novus Ordo.
So I think, you know what, let's save that for a different episode where we can kind of go into detail, because I feel that most Catholics are just not informed with what's going on, the certain things. Heck, I can bet you most don't even know what a motu proprio is. And I think it's important to kind of explain everything that we need to do. So we're gonna keep y'all on that note, just so that you don't just listen to two guys just blab on about nothing. We're gonna concretely explain things to you, as you've been hearing, listening. He has a degree in physics. I have a degree in Catholic theology on the philosophy track. So I think we can bring a lot to the table, especially when it comes down to documents that we've studied. I'm pretty sure he studied certain things. I've studied certain things. So I think we can bring it concretely to the table and give you more information about it. That way, if there
And
is
beyond
any
that,
doubt,
and I was just gonna say, and beyond that, not just in like an authoritative teaching aspect, right? We're not Catholic teachers. We're not we're not bishops. We're not Catholic professors. But just to give you some perspective, my wife likes to do this. My wife, my wife is very logically minded like I am, which is part of the reason that we get along a lot. And the way that she likes to express herself in any conversation is she over explains a lot, so that she can be sure that her interlocutors or whoever she's talking with understands her perspective completely and through. And so, much in that same way, at least the way I envision us, explaining things, like what a motu proprio is or anything like that, is not as people. Again, we're common guys. We're common folk. We're everyday Catholics. We're not teachers. I hope that we don't come off as guys with authority that are telling you this is exactly how it is, but rather just giving you guys perspective, our perspective as lay people, our perspective as common guys. Right? Hey, this is what we understand to be true. This is what like the perspective that we're coming from, and this is the explanation of why we think that the way that we do, because these are the facts as we understand them. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we misunderstand something, but we'll flesh that out. We'll talk about it, and maybe you guys can give us some feedback on that as well. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping to establish. Also, is not just oh hey, we're gonna teach you guys all these things, but also hey, by the way, this is our understanding. This is where we're coming from, so that our conversations can have a better cohesiveness, and yeah, everyone's on the same page. And like Jose said, we're not just two guys rambling about absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So, with that being said, hopefully y'all like this episode. We're gonna end on that note because I feel that we can go on all night. Um, we'll end on that note. Stay tuned for the next episode. Hopefully, we can do it weekly. If not, we'll try bi-weekly, but for sure, we're gonna shoot for weekly. Um, like, subscribe, comment, and if you're listening on Spotify, all I can say is follow and just stay tuned because we are just two guys who are ready to talk. So,
And maybe we're overemphasizing that too much, but yeah, we're two guys that want to get our voices heard, and maybe some of you guys are the same way, and so we're hoping that this appeals to y'all, that you guys, like us, want someone to say what you're thinking, and maybe we're thinking the same things. So here you go.
so to end it, let's do a Hail Mary for Strickland and the glory be. That way, God grants him the grace to go through this. I'm pretty sure it's humiliating for him, just out of nowhere. So, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the
Thou
fruit of thy
amongst
womb,
women, and blessed
Jesus.
is the fruit of thy
Holy
womb,
Mary,
Jesus.
Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost.
Glory to the Son, to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and hope you tune in next time. See ya.